Hello and welcome to another video concerning the statistical analysis and a very generic introduction to some of the function that we'll be using. If we don't use some of those functions through this series of videos or in the homework that we're going to be doing, it's no big deal. At least you have these functions ready for you for any time in the future that require their use. In order for us to get this, you have two choices. If you would like to go ahead and get the data file that you would like to work in this function with me, or you could actually type the data. I prefer to get the data already pre-typed. So if you go to Google and say statistical analysis function, and I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit larger so you could see what I typed there here, statistical function. Excel easy. This is the website and I'm using their files. And you notice the first thing here is going to get me to the statistical function in Excel. And if I clicked on it, it's going to take me to their website. Of course, I'm going to click Control minus sign or dash to make it smaller. And notice if you click the statistical function here for all this, if you click on this one here, notice you're going to get immediately a file with some of those that we use the average, but if you wanted to go ahead and get the specific one, like I'm going to go ahead and show you all these function now, the random numbers, the rank. Some of them I really don't need to download them because it's easy to explain it without having to rely on the data. But for forecast, percentile, and quartile, rank, and negative numbers to 0, I'll be able to do that very quickly with their data. So if I wanted to go ahead and show you now how to use the percentile, just go ahead and click on that file. It's going to download it to your taskbar. Click on it twice and it's open there. I already downloaded that. I cleared everything because I wanted to show it to you so you'll understand clearly what I need to do. I have 4 files already been opened. I click tab, alt tab in order to show me which one of those files I need to open. So when I press alt tab simultaneously, or it actually takes me from one open file to another file. I wanted to start with this one here because that's really where I'm going to show you the percentile. Here we go. So now I have this list of data. As you notice here, we have 20. I could easily count them. It's 20 of them. If I don't know how to count, no big deal. I could go ahead and say again count and open parentheses and select there, hit enter. There are 20 of them. Great. So with this list, with this list of data, I wanted to go ahead and see what is the 30 percentile. So what are these numbers that are up to the 30% from the list of the values? We could go ahead and use the function percentile. There's a lot of them here now. I mean, some of them are becoming deprecated, but just for compatibility purposes, I'm going to use the generic one, percentile. It says this function is available for compatibility with Excel 2007 and earlier. So we'll go ahead and use this since it's going to be used through the whole different versions of Excel. It's no big deal. So this is the array. We use array frequently. It means like an array of values or a range of values in Excel. If I wanted to use the same array over and over, I should really hit F4 in order to go ahead and create an absolute address for that purpose. And I'm going to go ahead and type 0.3, which is the 30 percentile. And it should give me 12.7, meaning that the value 2.7 really is the cut for the 30 percentile. Everything from 0 percentile up to 30% fall between 0 and 12.7. How about if I want to get quarter, like 25%? No big deal. I could go ahead and drag this back here. Of course, it's going to give me the same value because the reason it's going to give me the same value because I locked this range, so it's not going to change and cause me or wreak havoc on me. So the absolute address is very powerful because we need to really prevent it from dragging the range along with us. And we're going to go ahead and change that to, of course, 0.25. That is basically the first quarter. And at the same thing, I could go ahead and show you this is going to change to 50%. So that's really the middle point here. And the same thing for 75%. And if I decided to put, here we go, this is the 75%. If I decided to put 1, and that's going to be the maximum value, because the maximum value of the list. So it's going to give me 96. To prove to you this is the maximum value, I could go ahead and use the max function. Max function of all the lists here is going to give me 96, because when I use percentile, look here at this function, percentile 1, that's mean the maximum value that we're going to get. The same thing if we go ahead and use 0, it's going to give me the first value in the list. All right, so, or the smallest value in the list, or minimum, basically. Here we go. Let's go ahead and do it. Why not? So I could go ahead and do that percentile and change that to 0. And at the same time, okay, wait a second here. All right, I made a mistake. I apologize. I should have put a comma instead of here. And now we're going to get the 24. Instead of using the maximum here, I'm going to change that to minimum. You know, I'm editing here in order to get, actually the minimum was 1 in this case, and here the percentile 0, which is the very beginning of the whole step here. Yeah, that's basically a 22, you know, 22, not only a, and now we get the 1. You know, I made a mistake trigger another mistake, and we get into trouble. No big deal. I'm going to leave the whole thing. I don't want to really correct anything if I make a mistake, so for you to avoid the same mistake. Here we go, E3 through A22, and here we go, we got the 1, because before we only restricted it to 3, so it's really basically one cell, which is one value. It is actually the minimum of itself. What else we can do? We can do another type of function. It's called quartile. Quartile is very similar to percentile, except here it takes a whole number. For example, if I say here, that's going to be also blocked. If I say the minimum value, of course, it's going to take 0 here. It's going to give me 1. And notice the quartile with 2, with 1, sorry, it's going to be equal to the 25%. Here is the 25%. Look here. And if I click on this and I drag that to 2, and that's going to be the midpoint, which is the percentile of a 20. Here we go, medium value, or 50 percentile. And the same thing with 75 percentile. It's going to be, here we go, with a 3. It's a whole integer, not a fraction or a decimal point with a value. Here we go, and change this one here to 4. It's going to give me the maximum value, which is equivalent to max of the list of the numbers, or percentile 1, you know, or 1.0 in this case. So those are very helpful function. You might be able to really see where is the value that is going to determine a certain percentage. The beauty of the percentile, it doesn't have to be like 0.25, it could be 0.37. If you want to know what are the values below or equal to that percentile, percentile is a lot more flexible than the rest. Let's go ahead and continue with the other. I'm going to click Alt-Tab and see which one of these I'm going to continue with you. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and start with this one here, and it's going to be called the rank. Here we go. Very, very helpful function. And if you notice here, I have a list of values, all these values, and I'm going to be seeing where does actually this value rank among the list. So if I could go ahead and say rank, okay, rank, and I'm going to, of course, select all this. The number is this one here, that I'm ranking in reference to all these, which I'm going to go ahead and lock it. And notice here it's going to give me 6. Let me go ahead and take those out so see how it's going to generate that. What does that mean? 1455 rank that 6 in number or number 6, but that's coming actually from the largest to the smallest. If you take a look here, this is the second largest value, and this is the largest value. So it ranked them from the smallest to, let me see here. Yes, the rank number 9 is the smallest value, then the second smallest, then from the smallest to the largest. Well, I could change that if I want. I could go ahead and say, okay, give me the rank, but I want to put n 1 as a parameter at the end. What does that mean? It's going to actually not sort them, rank them from the largest to the smallest. So look here, largest one value is going to be rank number 9. You know, however you look at it, but you notice here when we use the parameter 1 at the end, it gives me number 1, number 9 is the largest. So this is probably from the smallest to the largest, and this is from the largest to the smallest. So because we're talking about the largest to the smallest, and this is from the smallest to the largest. What about this? This is really very also interesting because it's rank the average of each of these values. So if I say here rank A1 among all these values by selecting this and hit F4 to lock this. If I don't actually specify the 1, 1, it's going to rank that average from the largest to the smallest. Here we go. Look here, from the largest to the smallest. The only thing that I found that is two values, 2109 and 2109. These actually ranked usually in the third value from the largest to the smallest. So it divided the average at 3.5 and 3.5. However, I could change that very easily by putting another comma and put 1. Now it's going to rank them from the smallest to the largest. Look here what happens from the smallest to the largest. This is 1. Actually, this is how I should say it, from the smallest to the largest, because 1, 2, 3, of course 4, then we get 5. When we get to the 6, we have 2 of those values rank in the average, so we're going to get 6.5, 6.5. I hope you learned something from this. We're going to continue with the other videos, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt Tab in order to see which videos I need, which files I need to work with. I'm going to go ahead and work with this one here, which is really very easy. Sometimes we wanted to go ahead and how about if I wanted to subtract the 12 from 20, but I don't want it to get anything less than 0. Of course, we could use the absolute function, not the absolute address. You need to be able to distinguish between them. Absolute address is really locking a cell of some sort. Here we go, we're going to hit F4. We're locking the cell address itself. Absolute value, if I say here minus 100, is going to give me the 100. So the absolute value deals with number, and the absolute address or reference deals with the address. So they're very, very different, just like, you know, completely different states in the United States, like Texas and Washington State. Very, very different. So don't, when you hear the word absolute, it's completely, you need to wait for a second, see what is this individual referring to. Is he referring to absolute address or absolute value? If absolute value is turning a negative value into a positive value, absolute address meaning there is a locking, freezing of some cell in order not to move relatively to the next adjacent calculation. Make sure that you understand that fully. Anyway, we wanted to go ahead and do this one here in reference to what happens if I did subtract this from this. So there's no problem, but some values in this B column is larger than the values in A column. So we're going to get a negative value. We're going to get this negative value, negative value, negative value, negative value. So I'm going to show you quickly how to turn a negative value into zero regardless of what it is. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to trick it a little bit. We're going to use the maximum function. If 0 between 0 and whatever the subtraction of B1 from A1, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it is negative. Of course, the maximum function is going to apply this and it's going to pick up the 0 because the 0 is greater than any negative value. So look here, it's very clever. We're going to go ahead and see that every value that is negative is going to be turned 0 because the max is going to select the maximum value between 0 and any other subtraction. If the subtraction ended up to be negative, of course 0 will be replacing this. We will see an example based on this type of thinking where we're going to use minimum, we use maximum with an if statement. So let me go ahead and continue with another example before I close this video. I hope you have the patience to continue with me. I appreciate your listening to all this. Here we go. This is a really powerful segment of this video because we're going to be learning about not only function, but we're going to see a chart for the first time, and we're going to apply the trend lines to it in order for forecasts and a trend. Don't take this segment of the video lightly because when we talk about regression, correlation, talk about some serious statistical analysis pertaining to econometrics. Remember, econometrics mostly is based on regression, all sorts of regression. We need to be able to also see how we're going to generate some of these graphs. So let's go ahead and see that I have a period of time, from 1 all the way to 10. I had the values of the sales all the way to the period 10. I have period 11, 12, and 13. And I wanted to go ahead and forecast what is the possible value for the sales in period 12, period actually 11, 12, and 13. There are 3 different ways to do the same thing, and I'm going to expose you to all of them. So first of all, let's go ahead and do the chart. And I'm going to always give you the shortest cut possible, so you don't have to spin it through things that you don't need to really spin in it, especially when you are dealing with different Excel, maybe 2007, 2016, who knows what you are using. All of them going to be applicable to this class. So I'm not going to worry about which one you're using, except the chart is going to be a little bit different. So regardless, I'm going to go ahead and go to the scattered chart, and I'm going to use the scattered with the straight lines and marker. Of course, you could get that smooth one, smooth lines and marker. I'm going to change it to this one, which is coming very handy. As you notice, in the bottom here is the period, and here is the sales. And of course, we could go ahead and put very easily the I could go ahead and get that the format, and I could add all sorts of things, make it looks really pretty. And I could go ahead and say sales prediction. Okay, I'm gonna hit F7, make sure that I'm not misspelling anything. And at the same time, I could go ahead and add, if you notice here in the design itself, I could go ahead and add chart elements if I want, but I'm not going to go ahead and make it really big issue here. I could say here, I could go ahead and access, just go ahead and primary horizontal one, and I'll go ahead and put a primary vertical. And while it's selected, go ahead and type it here in the formula bar, and I'm going to go ahead and put it sales and hit enter so I don't have to really mess with it. And here we go, we're going to go ahead and type in the formula bars and go ahead and say here period. I'm not going to really be too fancy about all this. However, I could go ahead and make it really colorful. For example, this one here, if you click on the right button, is going to generate for you all sort of coloration that you might use. You could go ahead and use, for example, gradients just to show you. I mean, just like nothing really to it, but you could go ahead and do all sort of coloration if what that was required from you, just for better impact. Okay, so this is with two colors, no big deal. I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to get all these values. If I click anywhere on the one of these here, the format data series, you're going to see here so much to go around and play with it and get like really into a situation you don't want to really deal with. I'm going to go ahead and show you the quickest way to put the equation that I wanted to share with you really quickly. Here we go. We're going to go to the quick layout and choose. This is going to give you the trend line, but I wanted to go ahead and get it with the equation. And the equation is going to be using the least square methods. We're going to be discussing that in very big details. But at least at least you see that the R square is 0.9295. It's closer to 1 than it's closer to 0. So there is some sort of healthy relationship between the two variables, the period and the sales. There is correlation. And notice these actually the trend lines, and the equation is very helpful for us because it shows us how we could convert or predict in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here. It's going to be a full chart. And for the equation, in order to predict the 11 period based on the equation, we're going to go ahead and say, okay, 7.7, that is the coefficient of x, 515. X is going to be, I'm sorry, here we go, multiplication of the period in this case, which is the period 11, and a plus, of course, that 18, which is the y-intercept. And we're going to go ahead and see that's going to give me 103. That's the prediction based on the equation. And very nice, because now we could go ahead and if I do actually leave that alone, because A12 need to be left as a relative address, those are constants, doesn't matter, because this is the coefficient of the x, which is really the slope. Basically, the slope is positive, which means the rise by the run, which means the changes in y divided by the changes of x. So it's positive, so the slope is increasing for both values, meaning if the sale increases, the period increases, the sales is going to increase as well. We're going to talk about this as well. So this is the y-intercept. So this is where the line is going to intercept with the vertical line, which is the y axis in this case. So again, since I did that here, I'm going to delete that for you to show you that I could go ahead and get the same values here. Because I'm using the fill handle, and that's really the beauty of Excel for that purpose, so I don't have to really reinvent the wheel. The best thing about Excel is the fact that I have control over it comparing to other statistical analysis tool like SPSS or SAS, or which really require a lot of learning curve in order to do something as powerful as Excel. Knowing Excel is very available to all of us. So what is the forecast? I want to get the same thing exactly like I did with the equation if you could use the function forecast. So we could go ahead and say forecast, okay? Forecast what? It's going to ask you for the x. This is the x. That's the known x, okay? And among what? Okay, among all these, here we go, and we're going to lock it, of course, because it's going to be done for everything. F4 and comma for the known. This is the known. This is the known. And also, don't forget to hit the F4 and in order to lock it, and hit enter. Okay, we did actually switch those, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first. This is basically the known y. Sorry. And this is obviously this is what's supposed to be the known x. I should have taken a look at this one here in order to remind me what I should be doing. Sometimes I'll lose track of it. No big deal. You will always be able to look at the formula. And again, notice that I did put the y before the x's, known y before the known x's. But notice because I locked those, so I'm able to really reuse this formula without having too much trouble. In this one here, we're going to really use something really powerful that we have not seen before. We're going to use the array formula because we need to do it for all of them at the same time. So just to show you how to use all of them at the same time, we're going to use the function trend, which is going to allow me to actually not select one at a time like I have done for the forecast and the equation. We're going to select all of these together, So let me go ahead and show you here. When we are actually doing multiple things together, then we'll be able to do them in one click of a mouse, or a combination of a click of a mouse. So the function is a trend, which is trend here, trend. And we're going to go ahead and get known y's. These are the known y's. Here we go. And I don't need to really lock it because I'm going to apply everything together. And here we go, the known x's. All right, comma. And this is for the new x's. So these are the new x's. And now put the parentheses. However, you have to press Control Shift and Enter key because we have an array A12 through A14 that we're required to do the calculation for them all at once. So we're going to go ahead and press Control Shift and press the Enter key, and you will see all of them are going to be done together. Actually, it would be better if you even selected those at the beginning. Let me do it one more time. So in this case here, I'm going to select all that, and I go to the, if I don't go to the, if I want to select all of them and edit it, I need to go to the formula bar so I don't lose that selection, because if I don't go here and I start typing, see here, I'm going to lose it. So this is very good for the array formula to notice that you have to edit it here. So we're going to go ahead and say trend, open parentheses. I'm going to also remind me about the known y. Here is the known y. And notice I don't need to use the absolute address because I'm going to use all the values at the same time. This is the known x's, okay, and that's all right. Now we're going to say here for the new x's, which is this one here, and I'm going to close the parentheses. Now I'm taking my left hand with my thumbs and fingers here, pressing Control Shift, and while I'm pressing Control Shift, press that Enter key, and here we go. Notice that we got the same values using the equation from the graph. We got that same equation from the forecast, and we did actually the trend function by using the array formula, so we highlighted everything. Please watch this video again multiple times in order to understand what you need to do in a similar situation. Thank you very much for watching the whole things. I know it's been a long video, but I'm sure you're going to be patient with me. Take care.